have the European that worked really well, and Dreamtime Stories that worked really well, but suddenly we started selling homewares, and we had like different types of homewares, then we delete them and go into something else. So we didn't really go into our actual collections really well until the last probably 18 to 24 months, where we've cut out all the homewares and we've focused on the stuff that works, and we started going deep into those collections. How can you apply that whole idea of depth and breadth to a store, and how important is it?
I think you've got to look at the size of your store and work to that. So if you've got a fairly reasonable store like most boutiques are, I think that you should have, you know, types of ranges that you're buying that have the depth rather than the width. So you don't have 45 different products that don't have a story accumulated around it. So then you're kind of getting in and there's bits and pieces around the store. So if you look at Kmart, they took out all their width and started with kind of the depth instead. And so that's kind of why they are doing so well, because they've taken out the 5,000 types of mugs they've got, and they've just got a certain range now, and that's a real focus. So if you walk into a store, into a small store, you might have little different stories around your store that kind of connect. There's a really good store in Sandringham that's called Village Import, and she tells me that she buys to her visual merchandising. So she loves designing her store, and her store is stunning. Like, it's got the most beautiful range. You walk in there and immediately everything works together. It's a really nice vibe. She's got beautiful scent, she's got beautiful music. You can touch and feel all her things. She's got great props, and it totally works for her store, and she does really well at it because she's bought to her store and they all kind of link some way together.
So is that like, I mean, obviously we mostly sell in our store, but I said to Margie, like, I mean, obviously sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to like go, cling, that makes sense now, because I'm obviously trying to do a million things at once. And I said to Margie, right, when you go to the trade fair, I want you to buy according to the categories that we have. So Transcendence being one. If it doesn't fit into Transcendence, Australian Wildflowers, Dreamtime Stories, don't buy it. So it has to actually fit within there, and so is that a little bit
exactly,
like yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So buy to stories, look at the space that you've got, go, right, if I go to the trade fairs and I'm looking at, you know, what's on trend, I'm going to buy this story and this story and this story and this story to make it all work together. You have to kind of look at it as a big picture, not as little individual things that you're buying.
Okay. Now, going back to the retail environment and retailers and their challenges, from what I understand, you worked mostly with big retailers, but you obviously starting your own business, you're now wanting to work with small to medium-sized businesses because you feel there's a big need there. What are some of the biggest challenges you're coming across at the moment?
I know that retailers really want to engage in my services and in a freelance visual merchandiser. I've had lots of people call me, and then as soon as the quote comes in, that's it, I don't hear from them again. I think that people underestimate the value of visual merchandising, and they would rather buy and invest in product rather than the visual merchandising services that are provided. So yeah, that's pretty much the biggest challenge. Also time, they're very time poor. So because they're running their own business, they're doing their own accounts, their bills, they're buying, they're trying to sell at the same time. They're a one-man person in their own store, or one-woman person, whoever. And so they find it really challenging to step out of that environment to see if anything else could work in that space as well.
So I think, yeah, I was very interested for you to have told me that a couple of days ago, that, you know, retailers are so tight with their money, they won't invest in props as well to give off that amazing in-store experience. But they're probably so stressed about everything they can't even be creative about just not spending money, because I think it's a benefit to have less money because you have to be creative, you know, and I think that some of the most amazing people in the world came from no money. You know, and they did that because they had no money, you know, so, you know, it's about kind of using what you've got, or working with that. So, you know, like when we talked about this, Nadine was going to cost us, you know, $600 plus any time she would take to you know, buy the props, for example. And of course, I didn't talk about this to Nari. I just told her I'm getting Nadine, so I haven't had a conversation with her to how much it will cost, because Nari's that kind of person who will think about the money, whereas I'm that kind of person who just thinks about the customer. So you need both brains, and unfortunately, if you don't have a business partner, then you have to try to manage both sides of that brain. But I think thinking I need that $600 product is very short-sighted. You know, it's very short-term. You're just thinking in the minute, and I think, you know, you might only ever invest $600 in the lifetime of your business, or you might do it once a year. Whereas I'm thinking, if this works, which I will let you know, then we'll do it every quarter, maybe. You know, maybe we'll do it every couple of months. But you know, to put $600 in, it's a very small amount of money when you think about the benefits you get out of it. Like for us, our store is completely transformed, and it feels so much better, and we thought we were doing a good job. I thought the shop was amazing as it was, but we have no idea, and I'm too busy working in the business, not thinking, you know, just pull myself out of my business for a minute and look at the big picture. So I'm like, all right, so if society and retail is all about touch and feel and getting connected to your customers on an emotional level, and that's the number one most important thing you need to do in a retail outlet, then your time and money should be focused on trying to create that connection, that emotional connection. And once someone like Nadine comes along, it doesn't have to be her, it could be anyone, and they do spend a whole day transforming your store, then that's it. You sit there and learn from them. You know, so for me, I came and spent the whole day with her because I actually don't know anything about visual merchandising. And it was amazing, all the stuff that I learned. Now, I'm not going to go and do it again in 2 months' time myself. I'll still bring her back. But for you guys, you know, you can learn from it because you love it, you work in your business, you'll be able to understand the basic concepts of everything that she does. So I think it's definitely a long-term investment decision. So how often do you think retailers should change their stores?
Oh my goodness, as often as possible. Look, at a minimum, at least change your floor plan once a quarter. So there's this beautiful store that I love going to, but every time I go in, it's the same layout. She's got the same, it's different stock, but it's in kind of the same place. And it's kind of, you know, I kind of get a little bit bored because I do tours for people who want to go to Melbourne homeware stores. So I'm out in the field quite a bit. But this, you know, there's so many stores where I go into and it's the same old, same time. So I can imagine locals going out to store and coming into the store on a weekly basis, wanting to get a gift or whatever. And they come in and they're like, oh, nothing's changed, it's the same stock. I don't want to really invest my money into that because it's boring. But if you change it around every, say once a month, just even the floor layout and change your stock to different places or whatever, it all looks completely new. I mean, you know that just by looking at this whole store. Like the stock is more interesting, even though it might be the same stock, but it just has changed. And so you might put something else, a product with a different product, and all of a sudden the customers love that, and so they'll buy that and something else. So then you've got an add-on, you know, so then it's all about keeping it changed and keeping it fresh. Even, you know, moving your props around and everything, being more creative with props. And then your windows, certainly you should be changing it. You should have a visual merchandising calendar, basically, for any up and coming events that are happening, any promotions that you've got, anything that's to do with your local community, you know, get involved.
Yeah. And yeah, because and talking further into changing your store up, I guess one of the things that I'm trying to understand is about this whole concept of new, because I mean, obviously from a neuro connection way, it also affects consumers because it's that adrenaline that, or those hormones that get released, like the serotonin and the other one,
dopamine.
And I'm thinking, okay, so when I read about all these like really successful online stores and all these like really successful chains, and they change it up like Zara, or you know, they bring in new clothing lines every 2 weeks, and I'm thinking, freaking hell, like you can't do that as a small business.
Yeah.
So but then I met this lady who was quite ahead of like visual merchandising or something to do with Maya or David Jones, and she said to me, Tui, you know, the thing is that people will always come to the back of the store and buy your, you know, your black pants and your white t-shirt, but they put stuff at the front of the store to make it look like they bring in new stuff all the time. So I was a bit confused because I'm thinking obviously most of our customers are small to medium-sized businesses, and because retail is not doing that fantastic for a lot of them, or they're trying to get on with this current environment, how do they how can they have, because they can't change their stuff all the time, they can't bring in new stuff, it actually has to sell, and then they bring in more stuff, but that might take 6 months for some of them, so what would you recommend in terms of maybe you don't know much about buying, but for them to buy and then not buy too much, or change it up so that it does look like they are bringing new stuff in?
Well, everyone that I'm talking to in store, they're not always going to the trade fair to buy their new products. A lot of it's done online. People find their new products in markets. Yeah. They're finding new products. People are so creative that people are bringing out new things all the time. Australian made is also really, really popular at the moment. Yeah. So there's a lot of makers out there that can't get into the trade fairs. So you've just got to kind of hunt them down.